the Antarctic Treaty system may collapse before its formal review in 2048. This outcome wouldn't require a dramatic announcement or formal withdrawal. Instead, it could happen through a series of small escalations and treaty reinterpretations that gradually normalize military presence and resource exploitation. When examining potential triggers for treaty collapse, three scenarios emerge as most plausible. First, a unilateral declaration by a major power that it intends to exercise sovereign rights over its claimed territory. Second, the initiation of commercial resource extraction under the guise of scientific research. Third, the establishment of permanent civilian settlements beyond scientific needs. Any of these actions would likely trigger a cascade of similar moves by competing powers. The Klondike Gold Rush transformed a remote wilderness into a crowded frontier almost overnight in 1896. Similarly, the European scramble for African territories in the late 19th century saw an entire continent rapidly divided through exploration, resource claims, and strategic positioning. Antarctica's resource value exceeds both examples, complicated by existing territorial claims and military rivalries. Military strategists have studied these possibilities extensively. Between 2017 to 2022, naval war colleges in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia conducted classified war games modeling Antarctic conflict scenarios. These simulations, essentially frozen chess matches where each move carries strategic weight, revealed three critical vulnerabilities: control of maritime approaches through the Drake Passage, dominance of key elevation points for surveillance, and rapid force deployment capabilities in extreme conditions. The Drake Passage stands as the most likely flashpoint. This primary shipping route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans in Antarctic waters holds immense strategic value. Controlling this choke point grants tremendous leverage over resource extraction and transportation. The area has experienced a 35% increase in research facilities over the past decade, a clear indicator of strategic interest, with China, Russia, and Chile all expanding their presence. If territorial claims were suddenly enforced, Antarctica would fragment along predictable lines. The 7 original claimant nations would assert control over their sectors. Australia would face enormous challenges administering its claim covering 42% of the continent. Argentina and Chile would experience immediate border tensions where their claims overlap with each other and British territory. Nations with substantial infrastructure but no historical claims, particularly China and Russia, would likely declare new territories based on their effective occupation through research stations. Antarctic security expert Dr. Cassandra Stokes projects, by 2050, Antarctica could divide into 3 primary influence zones. The peninsula would become contested between South American nations, Britain, and China. East Antarctica would see Australia and China in a standoff with Russian interests. West Antarctica would likely fall under American influence, with New Zealand as a key partner. Antarctic conflict would differ dramatically from traditional warfare. The environment makes conventional military operations extraordinarily difficult. Competition would manifest through specialized forces capable of operating in polar conditions, unmanned systems, and control of key infrastructure. Satellite imagery from 2021 revealed that 4 nations have constructed facilities convertible to forward operating bases, with reinforced structures, expanded fuel storage, and communications arrays exceeding scientific requirements. Military planners categorize Antarctic assets by strategic importance: deep-water ports and long runways, Tier 1, elevated positions for surveillance, Tier 2, and facilities near resource deposits, Tier 3. China's expansion strategy methodically secures assets across all categories. According to Dr. Michael Crawford's analysis, Antarctic research infrastructure weaponization would occur in phases. First, dual-use facilities repurposed for military functions. Next, deployment of prepositioned equipment currently disguised as scientific instruments. Finally, introduction of polar-trained mobile forces. This transition could occur within 72 to 96 hours. Antarctica's resources would follow a predictable extraction sequence. Biological resources like krill would come first, requiring minimal infrastructure. Offshore oil and gas would follow once territorial waters were secured. Minerals and rare earth elements would require substantial investment, but eventually become the most valuable prizes. Economic models suggest extraction operations worth $300 billion annually could emerge within 5 years of treaty collapse. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute's 2023 report found that 83% of facilities built since 2010 are positioned for territorial control rather than scientific value. We are witnessing preparation for a controlled transition where science serves as cover for sovereign outposts, the report warns. Environmental consequences would be severe. Antarctica's ecosystems would face unprecedented pressure from pollution, habitat disruption, and introduced species. More concerning is the potential for conflict to damage containment systems at facilities researching ancient microorganisms, potentially releasing organisms isolated from the global ecosystem for millions of years. Antarctic militarization would transform global strategic calculations. The continent's position enables surveillance of southern approaches to 3 oceans. Nations controlling Antarctic territory could monitor maritime traffic across the southern hemisphere. Antarctic satellite ground stations provide unique coverage capabilities that enhance military intelligence gathering. These advantages explain the close connections between defense establishments and Antarctic programs despite treaty prohibitions. Since 2018, a confidential diplomatic working group has been developing contingency measures for treaty breakdowns. Their existence, revealed in leaked cables, suggests high-level recognition that the Antarctic Treaty system may be faltering. Their classified recommendations focus on new governance mechanisms acknowledging resource utilization while preventing militarization. Professor Elizabeth Minerva noted, "We're developing off-ramp options allowing managed resource development without triggering security dilemmas. The alternative, a free-for-all, would be catastrophic. Time for diplomatic solutions is running short." The current trajectory points toward a transformed Antarctica by mid-century, where scientific cooperation yields to resource competition and military posturing. Antarctica stands at a precipice. This last untamed wilderness is becoming the ultimate geopolitical proving ground of our century. The erosion of treaty protections, accelerating climate impacts, and intensifying resource competition have created a perfect storm. The next decade will determine Antarctica's future, contested frontier or triumph of international cooperation. Creating robust governance, transparent science protocols, and renewed diplomatic commitments is essential. The stakes extend beyond territorial disputes. Antarctica's fate will reveal whether humanity can transcend national interests to protect a global commons. This frozen frontier of our future